On today's show, it's the return of, well, the show. It's a 2-game recap of this series against the Marlins that has been a little bit crazier than we might have expected, and talking about some of your questions from over the last week. And yes, my voice is a little bit messed up, but we're back. Let's get to it.
You are Locked On Padres, your daily San Diego Padres podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another edition of Locked On Padres podcast, which is part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day for Wednesday, May 28th. As always, I'm your host, the San Diego Padres fan from New Jersey, Javier Reyes. You can follow me on Twitter/X and Blue Sky at Javipeno, Javiipeno. I am happy to be back. If my voice sounds off, well, I got a little bit of a strep throat thing that happened while I was in San Diego, my last episode, and I'm so sorry for being off for so long, guys. I just genuinely couldn't speak. It was the worst possible sickness for me to get, but I am pretty much a lot better, right? But if it sounds a little bit off, there you go. That's what it is. I had the one episode that I recorded in my Airbnb while I was down in San Diego, and let me tell you, a lot has happened. So today's going to be a really fun episode, but we're going to start by recapping these first two games against the Marlins because they have been just like very surprisingly wacky for a team that isn't very good in the Miami Marlins, and you've seen exactly why. Let's first start with yesterday's game, last night's game. The Padres win 8-6 in this one, despite, look, box score, not great for the Padres, right? But to give up 6 runs against the Marlins, and especially for Stephen Kolek, a pitcher who I really like. Not doing so good in this one. 5 1/3, giving up 6 earned runs on 2 walks and 3 Ks. But here's the thing. That's if you're box score watching, because in this game, Mr. Stephen Kolek didn't pitch nearly as bad as I think that sort of resume suggests, right? And what I mean by that is that the beginning of this game is basically just a lot of singles by the Marlins, things that squeak through in a lot of ways, right? Like that's just not what I consider like a horrid start for the Marlins, right? Or for the Padres in this case, and especially with Kolek, who then after that basically shut down the Marlins almost entirely, and then the bullpen did the rest, right? But he gives up 6 runs, but I still believe in Kolek. I still think he's a really solid pitcher. I think the fact that there were all these singles that were mostly on the ground, right? The launch angle, except for the Jesus Sanchez flyout, basically everything was on the ground. They happened to sneak through, right? Yes, they were hit pretty hard, which is what can sometimes result in starts like this. But I still have optimism that Stephen Kolek can be pretty good. He actually had a decent start, 2 games before this, not the one while I was in San Diego, because I cursed the team, guys, while I was in San Diego. What can I say? I cursed them into oblivion. But in terms of just as a 5 starter, I just love the way he induces ground contact, and I think he has some potential and deserves a little bit longer of a leash in the rotation. I know that this start is quite bad. I understand that, and I understand if you combine this with his previous start in which he gave up 3 earned runs to the Blue Jays on 7 hits, and then 5 earned runs to the Mariners. I know that doesn't look great. His ERA is now 4.11 on the season. I really do think that this was an inflated stat, and I still like him as a 5 starter. But thankfully, this is the Marlins, and the Padres were able to bounce back in this one significantly, starting with Fernando Tatis Jr., big home run in this one. It actually wasn't even the hardest hit ball of the day. It wasn't even in the top 15 hardest hit balls of the day. It's actually kind of wild that it even became a home run. 14 out of 30 ballparks, but nonetheless, he does get a home run in this game. And Tatis hasn't been very good for a while now, and frankly, even before I went to San Diego, he had been struggling. And I think that was something that I neglected to talk about in this podcast because he had such an electric first month that I almost kind of wrote it off. And we're going to talk about that a little bit more. But he gets the thing started 6-1. Thankfully, though, this is the Marlins, like I said, and they are able to crawl back into this one because bottom of the first is when he hits that home run. Then Tyler Wade drives in 1. Xander Bogaerts actually gets an RBI in this game. I actually made a joke tweet about him. When the bases were loaded, he couldn't give them the go-ahead hit, but he did have an RBI in this game, so I got to give him a little bit of credit. Jake Cronin sac fly. Luis Ariz gets a single to tie the game. He also puts them ahead in the bottom of the 5th, and then Jackson Merrill, who has been struggling as well mightily as of late, he homers in the bottom of the 8th inning. Good stuff. But overall, this is a story of the Padres, I think, just getting down and coming back against the team that, yes, it isn't a very good team, but for Stephen Kolek to kind of bounce back from a nightmarish first inning, and then for the Padres to tack on that many runs, even if it is a poor team, is still nice for the team, and especially the bullpen. Right, the bullpen has also been struggling lately. Sean Reynolds, he goes 1 1/3, he takes care of business. Yuki Matsui takes care of business, and then Jeremiah Estrada, he gets the save because of Monday's game. He is unable to go to Suarez, I should say, and Mike Schilt. So good win for the Pods. Good win for the Pods. And, you know, it's just funny because other things in this game, my poor guy on Miami, man, that was another cause for why the Padres were able to get back into this game. My poor dear friend on the Marlins, Ronnie Simone at second base, 4 errors, actually 3. Looks like they took away one of them. 3 errors by this one player in this game, and it looks like he was tearing up on the field. I just want to give a shout out to that guy because that stinks, and I'm not doing that thing where I'm going to start making fun of guys for showing emotion. I think it's dumb. I think it's lame to do that, but I felt sorry for the man. That is rough, right? Hopefully he can bounce back and be a good player going forward. Maybe hopefully not against us, but yeah, that also contributed greatly to this team. And look, this is a bad Marlins team. Jesus Sanchez 3 for 5 in this game. He's a player we've brought up on this show before. He's a right fielder for the Marlins right now, but he's a guy that in the future maybe could be a little bit of a solution for the Padres outfield, particularly left field problem. So just keep an eye on him, but otherwise, nice bounce back win for the Padres, and it started off pretty nightmarish, let me tell you. But of course, that wasn't all, guys. We're going to talk about yesterday's walk-off win against the Marlins as well. And then we're going to get into not just some of your questions, but also some other general observations over the last couple weeks, especially while I've been out with my health. As you guys can tell a little bit with my voice. But don't worry, we're still thriving and vibing out here, guys. But first, we got to take a break to talk about one of our sponsors. And that sponsor is our good friends over at the money that is monarching, and that is Monarch Money, guys. If you ever check your bank account and wonder where did all my money go between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment, it's easy to lose track, and that's where Monarch Money comes in, your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app, it's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place, so you stop just managing your money and start building wealth. And they've got a bunch of surprising insights for you. You realize just how much you've been spending on, you know, groceries or electronic subscriptions, food delivery, whatever, right? And then you can budget smarter and save more. They've got an all-in-one convenience, like I said, financial command center, and a lot of easy collaboration as well. Managing money with your partner is smoother than ever. You can track shared and personal accounts, set goals, and stay on the same page without the stress. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONMLB at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONMLB for half off your first year. Go out and check it out. And just like that, everybody, we are back here thriving and vibing into segment number 2 of this Locked On Padres podcast, The Great Return. Finally, I am back. I'm so sorry that I missed out. But granted, it seems like I didn't miss out too much over these last few days, right? Like the Padres have been terrible, but they were not terrible in game 1 of this series either, winning by a score of 4. Was it 4? Yeah, 4-3 in extra innings. First, let's start with Randy Vasquez, who, yes, you guys might be looking at me and saying, Javi, you've been telling me this guy was going to have a regression, and then it looks like he was going to, right? On April 21st against Chicago, he gives up 6 earned runs against Detroit. And ever since then, he hasn't given up more than 3 in a start, right? Like, this has been a guy who, with the exception of a game against Tampa and an exception of a game at Toronto last week, has been a little bit of a close to a quality start guy. Like, he doesn't break. And he's actually been, one of the things I criticized him for is he never had any games where he got more strikeouts than walks. And look at his last 4 starts. 1 walk, 5 Ks, 1 walk, 5 Ks, 0 walks, 4 Ks, 1 walk, 5 Ks, 6 1/3, 3 earned runs against Miami in this one. And look, his Savant page looks bad. I get it. His Savant page looks bad. And he's not good at getting any whiffs. He's not good at getting strikeouts. But whatever he's doing is working a little bit. And what I have noticed is at least there's been a little bit of a sporadic usage of his pitches over the past few starts, frankly, past bunch of starts. The one constant has been his cutter, which we've talked about. I like that pitch, especially depending on the matchup. I think it's just a pitch that guys, especially in lower quality lineups, really struggle to hit, or at least struggle to really take yard, right? And if he's not going to be walking batters as much, I like him a little bit more. And his FIP is getting a little bit better. Some of his numbers are improving if you look at FanGraphs and stuff like that. Like his field independent pitching, all that sort of stuff is improving ever so slightly. And one other thing that I've noticed is he's dropped his changeup these past 2 starts. So maybe he's ditching that pitch entirely, and maybe he's going to start using his curveball a little bit more. He didn't use it as much his start before this one, but maybe he's going to use that pitch a little bit more. Maybe he's going to see a little bit more consistent usage of his 4-seamer. I don't know, but all I know is I appreciate that it's working for now. I just warn and caution everybody, it's very rare for a pitcher to be able to go out there and not really have a put away pitch, not really produce a whole lot of ground balls. Like, he does produce some ground balls, but not a whole lot. He produces soft contact, but not enough that justifies a 3 ERA, right? Like a guy that's been like this, but there's clearly something more to him, and it's more than the numbers. And we've seen pitchers like this before, right? Like I said, his FIP is 4.95. That's improving from the 6 it was at not too long ago. You could look at Cal Quantrill a few years back, former Padres pitcher with the Rockies, or was it with the Guardians, I think, that he got away with a lot that season. And you know what? I'll take it for right now. I'm just saying, be careful. I don't know if this is going to break at some point, or maybe over the past few starts, maybe something is starting to change. I don't know. We'll have to see in the next start against a more legitimate offense, right? But also in this game, the Padres are still able to score when it matters the most, because it doesn't start off great, right? 3-0 to the Marlins, top of the second inning, but then big Jose Iglesias double, and then Manny Machado getting the home run to tie the game at the bottom of the 8th, and then Tyler Wade scores on a wild pitch in this one. Just impeccable stuff. Not a lot of offense from the Padres, basically just a 2-for-3 game from Jose Iglesias, and then the home run from Manny Machado. Manny Machado, by the way, starting to hit for some more power. We talked about this, right? Manny Machado, he has been exceptional, and we're going to keep talking about him, but his numbers are better than I think people realize. And we'll talk a little bit more about him when we start getting into questions and observations, but great stuff. And again, great walk-off moment for the Padres too. They needed this, especially after such a bad week, a bad series against the Blue Jays. And especially a bad series against the Mariners as well, featuring the game that I was at. I talked about this in my last show that I posted, which, the fact that I missed the only run that the Padres scored in person is insane, and it was a Tatis home run. But Tyler Wade running in from third, actually a close play at home. Tyler Wade, again, we criticized him last year, but I think that he shows his value in situations like this, which is that if you need speed, it's nice to have a guy in these situations, because with Jake Cronenworth up, it's not a guarantee, although I did feel decent about our chances. But Jake Cronenworth, is he a guy that's going to get you the single that you need? Not necessarily, and Bogarts drew the walk, right? And, ground out at any base. Bottom line, we didn't need to worry. Again, thankfully, the Marlins are they're a bad team. What can I say? So they do get the win here, but it's one of those things where there's still a lot of questions about this team, in my opinion. You still need to just get the wins, but the wins themselves have not shown me anything crazy just yet, right? We need a little bit more sustained success to feel better about the Padres, considering how much of a bad week they had and considering some of the troubling developments that they've had lately. So let's get into now, though, because I never miss this. I don't want to miss it, man. I don't want to miss this stuff. Even when I'm all sick, even when I'm in San Diego and I've got microphone issues and all that stuff, I don't want to miss your mailbag questions, guys. And we didn't get too many responses because, I didn't post enough last week, so that's why. But I just wanted to answer just a few of the comments that we got that have to do with some of my personal observations from the last week. Number one, at Chad Travis 7832 says, Fernando Tatis Jr. has completely fallen off a cliff. Dude looks totally lost and is absolutely killing this team right now. So here's the thing. He did hit a home run last night, right? We did talk about this. And that's the thing, though, is he's been a little bit... I think that the home run that he had, the walk-off home run that he had before I left, was kind of masked how bad he has been lately. Heading into last night's game, after slashing 324, 394, 591, which was a 986 OPS in March and April, Tatis threw 22 games, so this is not counting last night, in May is slashing 184, 253, 368. That's good for a 620 OPS. And that is, well, extremely not good. And people have also pointed out that he hasn't showed exactly the best body language, right? Like, what's going on with this stuff? And I do kind of get that. And here's the thing. In terms of statistics, let's talk about statistics for a second. The one thing that we've seen with Tatis this year is that he is a little bit, he's been more patient. Like we talk about with the different plate approach, right? He has a wider stance. He's not doing as much of a leg kick. But ever since that first month, and don't get me wrong, he's still going to get hits even if this is the case. But his ground ball rate has spiked tremendously. Doing a little bit of an Eric Hosmer impression, right? Maybe that's who he worked out with in the offseason. I don't know, right? But his ground ball rate is hugely spiked. It's about 54% right now, which is like much, much higher than his career norm, much higher for any player. His pulled air rate is the lowest of his career by nearly 4 points, and he's been struggling against off-speed pitches, 138 against them this season. And on top of that, he is still having the issue that he had the beginning of the month, even when he was doing well, which is the top third of the strike zone. He is whiffing on basically every single one of those three quadrants. He is whiffing and striking out, especially on stuff away, but he is whiffing on those pitches. This is a problem against lefties specifically, but in general, that's what I've noticed with him. He's just hitting the crap out of the ball, but it's going on the ground. And because he hits the ball harder than basically, only like a few other players that can do it as much as him, hits the ball hard, you're going to see him get some hits. You saw him get a hit last night, right? But in general, this is definitely something to keep an eye on. Tatis has not been the same guy. He is not putting the ball into the air. And it just speaks to his talent that he still has as many home runs that he has. But I'm just saying, launch angle sweet spot, he's in the 4th percentile this year, right? And he is whiffing. I don't mind that as much. He's striking out an okay clip, at least a little bit. As of late, he's been striking out more. But in general, I'm not freaking out about the walk rate and the strikeout rate. 9% versus 19, that's fine, right? And he's also playing exceptional defense this year. He's got 7 outs above average. Like, that's been awesome. Like, he's been an incredible defensive player. But the ground ball rate is very scary, or at least it is something to keep an eye on. I still think he's going to work his way out of this, but when it comes to the body language, I think that that's a fair criticism too. Like, he's looked a little bit weird, even last night, Crackin, or not last night, but the walk-off hit, a little bit like, yeah, we got it. There is a little bit something off with him. I don't know what it is. Frankly, I am kind of wondering, like, is there something in his personal life? I don't totally know what's going on with Tatis, but in general, it's not my biggest concern with the Padres because bottom line, still a great defensive player. He's still hitting the ball hard, and I think he'll work through it. Even if he has this high ground ball rate, it's not going to stay that way the whole time, I don't think. And even still, maybe he won't be a, 300 hitter that he looked like he was going to be at the beginning of the season, but he's still going to be a very productive player. So I'm not freaking out, but it is definitely warrant of more conversation that we might talk about even more as this podcast goes on. But that's not all, guys. Just want to address some more questions. At Phoenix Ash 927 said, dang, last week was tough being a Padres fan. I love that we have had such a great start that we are still in a playoff spot, but 7 in a row really stung. Luckily, we have some weak teams to beat up over the next few weeks, but we are going to have to figure out how to beat over 500 teams again once we face off against the Giants and Dodgers. Luckily, it seems like Machado has finally regained his home run swing. Go Pods. Also, love that you got to check out the Bricks and had such a great time at the stadium. Thanks so much, Ash. But seriously, you're right. The fact that the Padres do play some weak opponents right now is a welcome sign, right? I would have appreciated not getting, blown up in 7 straight games, right? But you do have Miami, then you have Pittsburgh, so that's nice, and then you have San Fran, right? So this is a really interesting stretch for the Padres, but I'd like to see some more developments, especially with Tatis and especially with some other players that we're going to talk about, guys. But first, one more break from our sponsors before we keep talking about some other observations, guys. We'll be right back. And just like that, everybody, we are back here thriving and vibing on Locked On Padres podcast. As always, you can follow me on Twitter /X at Javipeno and Blue Sky, JAVIIPENO. So happy to be back. Going to be more on a regular schedule again, finally, talking about this stuff. And check me out on YouTube as well. And check out my cool Flash Crash Bandicoot shirt. Whatever you want to do. Would appreciate that very, very much. Keep going, though, with some of the mailbag comments. At Eric Bratt 4240 says, stop with the rhymes and cutesy stuff and talk about the game. I wanted to do a little mini rant, like for old time's sake. And this was left on a comment on Jim's live stream. My boy, Big Jim Grease, he was holding it down, putting out some content, at least doing the post-game postcast while I was sick and recovering. I don't like you coming after my guy Jim. Jim is doing his stuff. And also, I don't understand. Just mini rant. I don't understand why people tune into any of these type of shows. And this goes not just for my show, but any Locked On show, justbaseball.com, which I'm a contributor to. I see these comments on their channel. Just talk about the game. And my response to that was always like, okay, then watch the highlights. You know what I mean? I've never understood that type of comment when people are like, don't show any personality. Don't just be a robot and talk about the game. This is a little bit weird. It's like, I'm not saying that I should, talk about Avengers and talk about all the books I've read on a sports podcast. I don't do that. But come on, man. It's just a little bit weird. It's a little bit weird. And hopefully you guys do enjoy my personality whenever I do show it. At LFGSD Padres says, Javi comes to San Diego and the Padres lose. Is there any correlation? Bruh, sorry the Padres were lame. At least the weather wasn't as bad on Sunday, but that is so cool that you came out here. Yeah, man, it was great. Seriously, though, my impression, it stunk that the last few days I basically had to, not quarantine, but like I had to, I couldn't do as much. I just wasn't into it. I could barely speak. But Mike's Tacos place, man, I'm telling you, near Bay Park, or sort of near there. It's like 20 minutes away. My God, that was like the best burrito I ever had in my life, man. I talked about it on last week's show too. Amazing stuff. At John Owens 7684 says, man, y'all are wasting a golden opportunity to take the division lead with the Dodgers losing 4 straight. Hope this doesn't doom you guys to the playoffs. Every game counts in the end. Yeah, I think that was the most disappointing part about the losing streak, is the fact that they had a chance with the Giants, and especially the Dodgers losing. The Dodgers with so many injuries to their pitching staff didn't take advantage. Really stupid. Really unfortunate. At Steve CEAVE says, the whole Vetter Cup thing is so corny. Then again, this channel has a Dawn of the Vetter Cup video. Wow, shots at our channel. I think it's corny, but again, I don't know about you guys. I'm a fan of it. Whatever. I want gimmicks throughout every game, throughout 162 games. I'm all for coming up with some gimmicks every now and then. Rama Murdy, as always, asking some questions via Blue Sky this time, saying, hi, Javier. Hope your voice is back and you're getting to enjoy the weekend. Question for Monday's show. In this case, Wednesday, should we play Sheets every day in left field, move Arise to DH, Jake to first, and excuse me, folks, died for a second there, and put Iglesias at second? This would help the offense more, but might weaken the bench. How was the trip to San Diego, and do you plan to visit again? Nice to have won a series and now get Miami and Pittsburgh at home. Thanks for all you do. Thank you for listening, my friend. I don't know if I'm a fan of this because Sheets is really dreadful in left field, and I think Jake Cronenworth, we already saw what that was like last year. Not a horrible player at first, but I think he does great at second. And Iglesias, while I do like his bat, I just think he would lose too much. And I like what they've been doing with the lineup, honestly, thus far. I think that they're okay. And Sheets really is bad defensively. And remember, that's kind of the reason the White Sox dropped him. And I think the Padres are like, dude, you know what? Just focus on hitting. We don't need you in the field. So I wouldn't do that. And again, the trip was pretty great until I got sick, man. What can I say? Solitary Soldier says, trade for George Springer and Framber Valdez. You'll win the pennant, fixes that horrible left field hole, and who doesn't love another pitcher? Where to start with this one? Number one, I don't think the Astros are sellers right now. And the Blue Jays can't be sellers. They just can't help it. George Springer is like completely back, and like that's not happening, especially because there's some money also owed to George Springer. Like, they don't have the prospects to trade for him even if they wanted to. And again, the Blue Jays are kind of just like in a position where they're like, we have to go for it, or at least we have to try. And then Framber Valdez, the Astros are pretty good, and the Padres don't have enough prospects. And I wouldn't want to give up too many prospects for him necessarily. But I get it, because one of the big things that happened was an injury. And let me tell you, last question, last comment, someone said, fill in the blank. At Eric Hancock 98569, this Padres team blank. I think this Padres team is a work in progress. And here's the thing. One of the biggest things that happened over these last couple weeks is Michael King being added to the IL. This reading from The Athletic. A day after scratching Michael King from a scheduled start in what they described as a precautionary move, the Padres moved him to the 15-day injured list with inflammation in his throwing shoulder. Right, his latest IL stint is retroactive to May 22nd, and he had not been on the injured list since he's with the Yankees in 2022. They scratched him. They said King felt like he slept on the shoulder wrong. They said it's not overly serious and whatnot. Okay, so this is bad, really bad. But I think to me, if I had to summarize, like the two worst things, the two things I'm most worried about with the Padres right now, it would be Michael King. And then it would be Xander Bogaerts. Xander Bogaerts, we've talked about enough. I know he had a 3-hit day last night, but you get my point. Like, that's something that I don't feel like is changing. With Michael King, it's also worth noting that Darvish he's still describing the feeling of some tightness in his forearm, according to AJ Preller. I thought he was going to come back in June. That's what was first being reported, but here's what I'm saying is this. We have been following the Padres for long enough, and we know that they get a little bit cagey about injuries, so it is something that I am watching out for, right? Look, in a vacuum, if King comes back and he's healthy, I don't feel too bad about this. But and if Darvish came back healthy, I feel great about this rotation because the addition of Pivetta is huge, and I'm expecting Cease to continue to chug along and be pretty good. And I like what we've seen, especially from Stephen Kolek so far, and I think Randy Vasquez, whatever devil magic he's doing, can at least continue a little bit longer, right? So I do feel good about this, but them calling Kyle Hart back up, I don't know exactly what options they're going to have, right? So this is going to get interesting, and maybe that crazy Framber Valdez trade is something they have to consider, or at least maybe something AJ Preller is considering. So I am worried. I am very worried. It is one of the things I'm worried about the most. And there were some positives over the last couple of weeks, right? I love what we're seeing from Gavin Sheets, and I think that it's pretty legit. I think that Jackson Merrill's home run last night was great, even though he's been struggling as of the last couple weeks, right? Ever since he came back off the IL. I think Manny Machado is showing that he's got superstar level, not just superstar level stuff still in the tank. But overall, this Padres team still has some worries for me. And it falls along with my prediction that this is still going to be a good team. I just don't think they're going to make the playoffs. But again, it's going to be close because they're still winning, right? They're still keeping pace. They're still in it. But we're going to have to see what AJ Preller comes up with. But guys, that about does it for today's edition of the Locked On Padres podcast, part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Remember to follow the show wherever you get your podcasts from. We'll be back tomorrow. We're going to talk about more notes that I have from over the last week. Some more just takes I got to spew. But since there was so much to talk about, I didn't have time to get it all out. So remember to follow me on Twitter/X and Blue Sky at Javipeno, JAVIIPENO. But until next time, stay safe and, of course, stay faithful, my Fire Faithful homies. Take care.